The deep beneath the playcare stirred as chains rattled in the dark and Dogday opened his eyes for the first time in years. The old bandage over his face begins to loosen as sensors within his mechanical body spark back to life somewhere far above. The children called his name through broken speakers and something ancient answered back. The players moving through the collapsing halls of Chapter 6 felt the floor tremble beneath their boots as pipes burst and steam poured through cracks in the concrete. The smile on Dogday's face twitched as gears turned inside his skull and his once gentle voice grew low and distorted. A warning system blared through the facility as red lights washed over rusted toys scattered along the corridor. The player pressed forward through flooding tunnels searching for a way out, while behind them massive footsteps echoed louder with each passing second. Dogday was awake now and he was hunting. The walls seemed to breathe as though the entire building had become a living creature swallowing everything inside it. Whiskers twitched at the end of dark hallways where shadows pooled like ink, and somewhere close by a child's laughter played on a loop through broken intercoms, haunting anyone brave enough to listen. The player pushed through a rusted gate only to find themselves inside what looked like an old classroom filled with toppled chairs and shattered chalkboards. Writing scrawled across the walls, read words that made no sense anymore, just fragments of a forgotten curriculum twisted by decay and time. Dogday emerged from the shadows at the far end of the room, his massive frame filling the doorway completely. His eyes glowed a sickly yellow as he tilted his head, studying the player like a predator sizing up its prey. His voice crackled through broken vocal modules, saying something about playtime being over and how everyone must go to sleep now. The ground shook as he took his first heavy step forward, crushing broken toys beneath his massive paws. The player scrambled backward, searching desperately for an exit, while pipes overhead groaned under pressure, ready to burst at any moment. Sparks rained down from damaged wiring, illuminating the room in flashes of blue and orange light. Dogday let out a low growl that vibrated through the floorboards, a sound that seemed less like a toy and more like a wounded animal driven mad by isolation and forgotten promises. The player ducked behind a fallen bookshelf as his massive claws swiped through the air, missing by mere inches. Wood splintered and dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe or think clearly. Amid the chaos, somewhere in the vents above, a faint whisper called out, guiding the player toward a hidden passage that led deeper into the facility, away from Dogday's reach for now. As they crawled through the narrow shaft, the metal groaned under their weight, and behind them Dogday slammed his fists against the vent cover, trying to force his way through. His frustrated roar shook dust down from the ceiling as the player pressed onward, finally dropping into a maintenance room filled with old monitors and flickering screens, each one displaying grainy footage of the playcare in its earlier days when the halls were bright and full of color, a stark contrast to the crumbling nightmare surrounding them now. Among the static, one screen showed Dogday running joyfully with children, the memory now buried beneath layers of corruption and neglect. The player felt a strange pang of sorrow watching the footage, a reminder that whatever Dogday had become was not entirely his fault but the result of years of abandonment and misuse. A distant alarm snapped them back to reality as Dogday had found another way around and was closing in fast. The maintenance room shook as something massive slammed against the far wall, cracks spreading like spiderwebs across the concrete. The player grabbed a nearby keycard from a fallen desk and rushed toward the exit before the wall gave way entirely. Behind them, Dogday burst through the rubble, roaring in fury as he chased them down a long corridor lined with broken windows, revealing a vast underground chasm below. The facility itself seemed to be collapsing piece by piece, unable to withstand the chaos any longer. The player sprinted through crumbling doorways, leaping over gaps in the floor as Dogday closed the distance with terrifying speed. His claws scraped against the metal walls, leaving deep gouges as he pursued relentlessly ahead. A large elevator shaft offered a possible escape route, but the controls were damaged, sparking dangerously. The player worked quickly rewiring the panel while Dogday barreled down the hallway, growling with each step. Time seemed to slow as the elevator hummed, the life doors sliding open just as Dogday lunged forward, claws inches from the player's back. They dove inside, slamming the emergency button as the doors shut just in time. Dogday's fist collided with the metal doors, denting them inward but failing to break through. The elevator shuddered and began its slow ascent, leaving the beast below howling in frustration as the facility continued to crumble around him. The player caught their breath, finally allowing themselves a moment to process everything that had just happened. The encounter with Dogday had revealed something deeper about the facility, a story of broken promises and twisted love turned into something monstrous through years of darkness and isolation. As the elevator climbed higher toward the surface, flickering lights revealed old photographs bolted to the walls, showing happier times within the playcare, a stark reminder of what once was before everything fell apart. The player pressed a hand against the cold metal wall, feeling the weight of everything they had witnessed so far in this nightmare of a facility somewhere below. Dogday continued to search through the wreckage, his growls echoing up through the shaft, a haunting reminder that the chase was far from over as the elevator doors finally opened, revealing a dim hallway leading toward the next section of the facility. The player stepped forward cautiously, aware that Dogday could still find a way to follow them through the maze of tunnels and passages that made up this forsaken place. Ahead, a faint light flickered, signaling a possible way forward through the ruins of what remained of Chapter 6. The air grew colder as they pressed onward, each step bringing them closer to whatever awaited beyond the darkness. The sound of dripping water echoed through empty rooms, mixing with the distant hum of failing machinery struggling to keep the facility from collapsing entirely. A low rumble in the distance suggested that Dogday had found another path and was still relentlessly searching for his prey. Undeterred by the setback, the player quickened their pace, moving through narrow corridors lined with rusted lockers and forgotten equipment left behind by workers who had fled long ago. As they turned a corner, a massive shadow stretched across the wall ahead, signaling that Dogday had somehow gotten ahead of them through a hidden passage. The player froze for a moment, heart pounding as the shadow grew larger against the flickering light before diving into a side room just as Dogday rounded the corner, his massive frame scraping against the narrow walls as he searched the area, growling low and menacing. The player held their breath, pressed against the wall, hoping the darkness would hide them long enough for Dogday to move on. After a tense few moments, the growling faded as Dogday continued down the hallway, unaware of how close he had come to finding them. The player exhaled slowly, relieved but knowing the danger was far from over as they continued deeper into the facility, searching for any sign of an exit. While Dogday's rise through the ruins of Chapter 6 marked a turning point in the story that would not soon be forgotten by anyone who witnessed the chaos unfold that night within the crumbling walls of the playcare. And comment down below with your thoughts, and like and subscribe for more mind-blowing Dogday theories.